Folks, welcome into That Betting Show, March 15th, 2019. Your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. March Madness Conference Tournament action underway. He's Teddy Safransky at Teddy_covers on Twitter. I'm Donnie Seymour at Rightside VP. Let's get right into it. Zion back in a big way for Duke last night, Teddy. Watching the game, explosive as ever. Duke back into that national picture, looking to get on that one line. But we're gamblers there, Teddy. Some interesting stuff happened in that game, including a late three-pointer.
Sure, the three heard round the world with Frank Howard, and it wasn't at the buzzer. There was like 10 or 12 seconds left, but Duke was just going to dribble it out after Howard hit the three, cut the lead from 15 down to 12, which means it landed right in the middle. Now, if you didn't bet Duke early, because that line went from 11 up to 11.5, 12, fairly early in the day. If you didn't bet them early, maybe you got a push with the Blue Devils. If you bet them late, that Frank Howard three ripped your heart right out of your gut in a game that Duke pretty well controlled start to finish.
Yeah, Teddy, I mean, taking a look at the game last night, I mean, Zion obviously going 13 for 13 from the floor, looked every bit as athletic, in shape, and ready to go. And the one question we had yesterday, Teddy, on That Betting Show was, what were we going to get to see out of Zion? I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams, even if you bet or not bet the game, turned it on, saying, you know what, maybe a little bit tentative, maybe a little bit apprehensive. Let's see if the knee's fully, ready to go. Boy, was he in shape last night, ready to go play darn near the entire game. So moving forward, looks like Zion's going to be full go throughout the tournament and then heading into March Madness.
Yeah, I mean, this is March Madness, but heading into the next round of March Madness next week, it certainly looks that way, although we'll have to see tonight. Obviously, a near perfect, well, I mean, when you hit every shot, it is a perfect performance. Last night, things will be tougher for Zion tonight on the second of back-to-backs coming off the injury against a North Carolina team that can battle him pretty tough in the low post.
Yeah, we'll see how he responds, see how that knee comes back, see if he gets that same workload tonight, because as you know, watching UNC, they're going to go up and down the court, a high over-under total, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, but should be a fun one to watch down in Charlotte. All around the NCAA on Thursday, Teddy, was fun from start to finish. Then again, depending on where your tickets were laying, I got a nice little bonus gift late in the evening, Teddy, a no-sweat winner on Marquette, -3.5 as they took place in the Garden. And a lot of these things, type of games, start to play out because you're looking at teams that are fresh, even though St. John's is used to playing in the Garden, playing 24 hours earlier than coming back against a formidable opponent who is always the higher seed. Looks like it's playing out that way in a couple of these games also.
Yeah, I mean, the books got absolutely smashed on some games yesterday. No question about it. Marquette was one of those games where nothing but Golden Eagles money and Marcus Howard took over. But the supporting cast for Marquette, I thought, played really well yesterday. We'll preview their game tonight. Later in the show, Kansas. Well, I thought Texas played bad more than Kansas played good. The Jayhawks had multiple opportunities to put that game away. Couldn't get it done. Finally, able to. That was a survive and advance game for the Jayhawks in that win over Texas. But certainly that a particularly bad game for many books here in Las Vegas. Lots of parlays and lots of public money were on the Jayhawks last night.
Yeah, Teddy, you take a look at Maryland last night. Coming into that game, a really short-handed Nebraska team. You think you would level the boom on them early. Nebraska pulls off yet another victory. But, in order to win that tournament, you're going to have to win 4 or 5 straight days in a row. We'll see if they can overcome the odds again with the Huskers. First look at Major League Baseball today. It's a great day here on the East Coast, Teddy, because we finally catch up to my Philadelphia Phillies, 80-82 in 2018. On the looks of it, you would say, boy, that's a good rebuilding year to have 80 wins, coming down the stretch. But the fact is the Phillies fell off the map in August and September. So they reloaded this year. Bryce Harper obviously comes to town. JT Realmuto comes to town. We'll see what we can get out of that new revamped lineup, which the problem last year really wasn't the pitching staff. It was getting any sort of competent hitting to put up 2, 3, or 4 runs. Phillies the bottom of the barrel last year, certainly amongst most categories in baseball and hitting. But it looks like they're going to get that underway. Some live arms, Aaron Nola, bona fide certified #1. But what are we going to get out of Jake Arrieta? Can he regain that form back to, not Cy Young ability, but maybe on that upper echelon level, and a couple really good pitchers that they have just needing to feel their way around Major League Baseball. Philadelphia Phillies, team total, as we take a look, 89 and a 10-1 ticket to win the 2019 World Series, Teddy.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of betting market love for Philadelphia, and understandably so. When you pick up Bryce Harper and Gene Segura and JT Realmuto in the offseason, you're supposed to score a whole bunch of runs the next year, and obviously committing an extraordinary amount of money with those 3 contracts. And you bring back Rice Hoskins. Obviously, he had 34 dingers a year ago. I think the Phillies are going to score runs in bunches. All that being said, are they going to be able to get anyone out? I mean, Nola's an ace, all right? Arrieta was not an ace last year and was not good down the stretch. Talked about their struggles in August and September. Arrieta was a big part of that. You look at the back end of that rotation with Pivetta and Velasquez and Eflin. I don't see these guys getting a whole lot of outs game in, game out, especially pitching in a bandbox ballpark like Citizens Bank ballpark. My gut reaction on the Phillies going into the season, I want to bet this team over the total every game, day in, day out. Philadelphia looks to me like a squad that's going to score a whole bunch of runs and a squad that's going to give up a whole bunch of runs, which doesn't necessarily bode well for their postseason chances. I'm not one of these guys buying futures on the Phillies to win the World Series and all of that this year. I am, however, looking for Philadelphia games early in the season to be betting up and over the total, especially at home. I think they're going to be scoring 5-6 runs every game, and they're going to be giving up 5-6 runs every game, which is good news for overbetters.
Yeah, a lot of muggy nights there at Citizens Bank Ballpark over the summer. A lot of souvenirs expected to be in the seats for the summer. Should be interesting to watch the Phillies as it plays out in a very competitive NL East. Overnight line movers, Teddy, sportsbookreview.com, the best place on the internet to check. Check out SBRodds.com. Also give us a follow at SBR Sports Picks on Twitter. Take a look at the first game, Teddy. Bucks Heat total drops a little bit lower on Friday. Offshore markets opened up around 221, now sitting at 219.5. Bucks Heat tangle tonight, -5, 219.5. Moneyline split 190 plus 171.
Yeah, we're showing some respect. The market's showing some respect for the Heat's defense. They just absolutely shut down the Pistons. And in fact, you talk about the bad for an NFL, NBA offense. When teams score 8 points or less in a quarter, it's happened 4 times this season. And 3 of those quarters been Miami Heat playing defense. So certainly a little bit of respect for the Heat defense and what they did to Detroit the other night. It's also worth noting 5 of the last 6 meetings have stayed way under the total. 1 did go over. But there was at least one of the 2 teams that didn't reach 90 points in all 5 of those games that stayed under. So I'm not shocked. We've seen at least a little bit of under money for Heat and Bucks in the overnight/early morning hours here in Vegas and around the country.
Big move, Teddy, in the Lakers game. Lakers total coming down in their back-to-back outing tonight. Total opens up around 221 offshore and drops to 216. Now sitting, if we take a look around that 216.5, 217 level. Lakers Pistons -11 tonight. Big money line split. +588, -850. Another loss from the Lakers last night. Continue to move down a little bit south out of Toronto down to Detroit. Doesn't look good for those Lakers tonight. And maybe signaling some injuries or maybe somebody getting some rest tonight, Teddy, on a back-to-back.
Well, I think this total has everything to do with the Pistons. You say it's the Lakers game. No, the total move is about the Pistons game. That's Reggie Jackson, the Pistons starting point guard, who's been instrumental in their run since the All-Star break, where Detroit's played some pretty good ball and moved up in the playoff picture. Jackson is banged up. He has an ankle injury. He's very questionable tonight. The Pistons, without Jackson at 100%, were hopeless on offense the other night in Miami. They, in fact, back-to-back games where Detroit has been held under 75 points, which doesn't happen in the NBA in 2019. So the market's looking at Jackson's injury, looking at Detroit's offensive struggles, and saying, yeah, we can bet this one Laker game under the total. Certainly there hasn't been consistent and significant line moves for the Lakers under the total at any point this season. So in my mind, this move's about Detroit and their current offensive woes and their point guard injury.
ACC, ESPN's going to take center stage tonight. UVA takes on Florida State in the ACC semifinal. If you watched yesterday, Florida State used a clutch last-second jump shot that stuck on the rim. It ends up falling, so they can move on and take on UVA. UVA, a little bit of struggles in the tournament, but they are going to clamp down with that pack line defense. -9, they open up, Teddy. Over-under, very low, 124.5. Moneyline split, +350, -450. When we take a look at these two teams, Florida State, very talented, but only 15-17 against the spread on the season. UVA, backing them all year long, has paid dividends. 23-8 against the spread. They get it going tonight in Charlotte, Teddy.
Not just this year, last year, the year before, this has been an extended point spread run of success for Tony Bennett and the Cavaliers, and it hasn't changed. It's even gotten better in 2019, despite all the success they've had in years past. And some of that has to do with the fact that Duke and North Carolina suck a lot of the oxygen out of the room in the ACC. Some of it has to do with the fact that Virginia became the first number 1 seed to ever lose to a 16 seed last March. And they haven't been on an extended NCAA tournament run to get the hype that this program probably deserves. But make no mistake about it, when Kyle Guy's hitting, Virginia's as good as it gets in the country. And now, Florida State's had all kinds of problems matching up against the Cavaliers. The last 3 years, they haven't scored more than 60 in any game against Virginia. They shot 15 of 44 in the first meeting, lost by 13 in that game. And, of course, Florida State played in overtime yesterday, 3 players with 35-plus minutes in that ballgame. Although, one thing I do like in conference tournament season, let me make this very clear, I like a team that survived in advance without playing their best game. Florida State did that yesterday, but all that being said, Virginia is not a team I have any interest in stepping in front of, even in this somewhat inflated point spread range.
How about the secondary back-to-back here on ESPN tonight, going right back down to Charlotte. Round 3, ding, ding, ding. Duke versus USC. Maybe we'll get more than 30 seconds between the first 2 games of Zion Williamson. Should be a fun one to watch. Total, as you see, 164, just pretty high for a college basketball game. UNC the favorite at -3. UNC is getting 3 points in this game. Moneyline split -150, +130. This one should be good. Duke 17-15 in all line games against the spread this year. UNC 19-10 against the spread in all line games, and 13-6 against the spread versus ACC competition. Questions, Avant? Look, UNC looked good yesterday, beating Louisville. Duke looked good, beating Syracuse yesterday. How's Zion going to react to the knee? A lot to go over in this game, but all eyes will be on the ACC tonight. Should be a good one Friday night, Teddy.
Yes, and I'll talk about this game in 1 second. Something just popped up on the ticker right here. LeBron, who you referred to just a moment ago, as someone who might sit the second of back-to-backs, he is now officially listed as questionable for tonight. Ooh. I expect the markets to move accordingly. When it comes to Duke and North Carolina, obviously we saw what happened in the first meeting. Zion blows his shoe out and North Carolina rolls. And then we saw what happened in the second meeting. Zion couldn't play and North Carolina rolls. Now it's the third meeting. Zion's back. And boy, if you watched Duke last night, I mean, look at RJ Barrett. We have Zion back, so it was just a lot of fun. And it looked like Duke had a lot of fun out there last night. Williamson himself. I know I was ready to come back a few days ago. I got some reps in with the team. But I would like to say this. There was never any pressure for me to rush back when I wasn't ready. He's trying to keep from throwing Coach K under the bus. Look, Tar Heels have been great. They've won 8 in a row. They played brilliantly last night. A really good first half against Louisville, and were able to maintain and even extend over the second half of that contest. Can they match that again tonight? We talk about teams that didn't play their best game and survived in advance. Those tend to be teams I like to back. I thought the Tar Heels played great last night. I thought the Blue Devils played great last night. Worth noting, Duke will be without Marcus Bolden tonight. Sprained his left knee last Saturday. And he's someone who could have an impact in this ballgame against Luke May and the big Tar Heels front court.
Yeah, Tar Heels look great in those first 2 Duke games. We'll see if they can rebound and make it a trifecta down in Charlotte. Live from New York. It's not Saturday night. It's Friday night. Seton Hall and Marquette going to go live at the Garden tonight. Marquette favored -4, total 142. Last night, Teddy came out to a nice lead in the Garden against St. John's. St. John's closed to within 6 points about 15 minutes ago. And away Marquette went the way they should have, the way you almost thought, because of the previous 3 to 4 games, Teddy, having the lead in the second half, collapsing at the end. They made sure that was not going to take place in a blowout victory over St. John's. Seton Hall 15-6 against the spread on the season. Marquette 18-13 against the spread. Feels good for Marquette, Teddy. Closing a game, blowing a team away, getting your feet back under you as they head to play Seton Hall tonight. Big game in the Garden for the Big East.
It sure is. And I mean, when you think about what happened yesterday, I thought this quote really mattered from Marcus Howard. What was the difference tonight? Given my teammates, they really stepped up big in terms of taking control of the game from the early start. Once they were able to do that, it kind of opened things up for me. And of course, Howard, who averaged 25 points a game during the regular season, scored 30 points yesterday. But the key was the contributions from the supporting cast. And that's what Marquette needs. They're going to continue winning games in this tournament and next weekend as well. Now, it's not like We're talking about a Seton Hall team that doesn't have a superstar of their own. Miles Powell went nuts. He scored 29 points in the first half yesterday against Georgetown. Finished the game with 31. But the fact that that was a cruise type of game as opposed to what you were talking about, even though Marquette ended up winning by margin, they got tested a little bit in the second half of that game and had to go on a run in order to extend. It's a little bit easier for Seton Hall. They may be a little bit fresher this evening. Regular season series split between the two teams. Golden Eagles lost on the road by 4, won at home by 9. Oh no, I got it backwards. You remember that game where they were able to? Seton Hall was able to close out the game on an 18-0 run to beat Marquette just a couple of weeks ago. A game that I'm certain the Golden Eagles will remember.
No, exactly. And that's going to play into it as well. Also in the psyche, Teddy. You get that second half lead. Seton Hall says, we've been there, done that. We can come back on you. Just nice for Marquette to get that win out of their way last night and try to advance. Friday night NBA, Teddy. We can't forget about the NBA. It's because March Madness is going on with the conference tournament action. The big boys in play. Still some good NBA games out there. The Bucks. Are they going to party? Or are they going to play down on South Beach tonight? Bucks and Heat. Bucks favored by 5. Total 219, money line split minus 200 plus 170. Bucks 40-26 against the spread in all line games this year. 44-24 against the spread as a favorite. 16-11, Teddy, as a road favorite. But look, you want to take the Heat as a slouch here. Betting your money against them, not too profitable. 35-21 against the number in all games this year. A battle of two teams, Teddy, very good against the number.
Yeah, and Miami's been especially good catching points, not laying them. Milwaukee's been good literally in every role, and the Bucks in position to start putting their finger on the number 1 seed in the East. They have a 2.5-3 game lead over the Raptors right now. Sixers and Pacers no longer real contenders to win that 1 seed, and that's something that Milwaukee has put a fair bit of emphasis on. Had a real nice win in New Orleans the other night. A lot of it was offense. They were hitting shots all night long. They scored 45 in the third. Of course, they gave up 41 in the third. And I talked a little bit about Miami's defense earlier in the show. A defense that just held the Pistons to 8 points in the third quarter. They went on a 21-0 run in that third quarter, which is their longest run in any game this season. I like the way Miami's playing defense right now. I really do. And we saw the Bucks blow out the Heat. They just killed them when these two teams met in January, 124-86. But the one previous meeting in Miami, Bucks defense, or the Heat defense was spot on. They really shut down Milwaukee from getting in the paint. 43 3-point attempts for Milwaukee in that ball game. They made only 9, and they lost at Miami by 7 in a game that stayed way under the total. No surprise here. If tonight's game 2 ends up being a defensive struggle, all this sharp money coming in on the under, I wouldn't fade it for this matchup.
Teddy, NFL still stays in the headlines. Yesterday, the Browns seem to be, ground zero for everything here. Big trades, big personalities, and also suspensions now coming back in the NFL. An 8-game suspension levied down on Kareem Hunt. The previous Kansas City regime did let him go after that video surfaced of the, domestic violence incident in the hotel. Now, it turns out it's going to be 8 games, could have been up to 10 games, but they do get a little bit less with the overall 8-game number. The question I bring up to you here is I believe in redemption a lot. If you're a habitual line crosser, you're not going to get any more excuses out of me. But, young, and I say young kids, and I say this in a different term, young adults, they're going to make mistakes. Maybe you go out at night and maybe you let things get a little bit too far. You should never, ever put your hands on a woman. But I do think the 8-game suspension was fair, can get his life back in order. Let's see if he can get back on the field and make some things happen and be a productive member of society. So my take on this, Teddy, I think it's fair for the 8 games. If he does it again, there's no sympathy for me. If he plays or doesn't play again, it doesn't matter. But good move by the Browns to bring this guy in cheap. And it looks like they're going to get him for that back-end stretch run when they already have a pretty talented roster.
Donnie, I agree with everything that you just said.
What?
How can we argue about this? That really pisses me off that I agree with you so much. But that is the truth, okay? It's really easy. And God, the talking heads on radio and TV do it all the time. This guy did this. That guy did that. Look, we're all human. We've all screwed up. We've all screwed up many times, particularly as young adults, all right? It's going to happen. I'm not saying we excuse domestic violence. I'm saying you give everybody a second chance. and he deserves one, and he will get one with the Cleveland Browns. All that being said, I mean, when we look at this compared to Ray Rice, who never played another down in the NFL after his video came out, the difference, how old they are and how fast they are. Kareem Hunt's younger, and he's faster. Ray Rice was on the downside of his career, and it wasn't worth it for any NFL team to take the PR hit to bring him on because he wasn't good enough anymore. That's all it had to do with. Wasn't that Ray Rice? What he did was worse. In fact, if you look at Ray Rice's life, he's a good guy. I mean, a genuinely good guy, but he made a mistake. He paid for it with his career. Kareem Hunt made a mistake. He'll pay for it with 8 games. In my mind, that's appropriate for this level of physical violence.
Yeah, Teddy, I agree also. With the Ray Rice thing also, I mean, you hear it from even family members. The oldest in the family never gets the car, never gets to go out late. And by the time the third kid gets through the line, the parents are like, you're going to do what you want. Here's your car, and you can stay out late. So always the first one's going to get penalized a lot more because you've seen it in other instances throughout life, even in the National Football League. But always interesting to see. And the Cleveland Browns, we'll be talking about them many, many more times here on That Betting Show. March 15, 2019, this was your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. Good luck on cashing all your tickets this weekend. He's Teddy Savransky at Teddy_covers on Twitter. I'm Donnie Seymour, Right Side VP. We'll be back Monday after Selection Sunday. You won't want to miss that show on Monday, people. Have a good weekend.